Hey, where's Garrett?
I still haven't been able to find him.
You're just looking everywhere.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Faith and Whatever. This is our 25th episode.
Wow.
We are certainly growing in our...
Not in our numbers.
in our videos that are gracing YouTube with their presence. I am your host, moderator extraordinaire, at Josh_Carmen. Let's chat on Twitter, because that's where I spend a lot of my time hanging out. You can find James at JamesYuile, Garrett, who is in Mexico, either helping at an orphanage or fleeing from the police. We haven't quite figured out which one. He's at
He says one, but we know it's the other.
What are you talking about? He's right there. Oh. Hey, buddy. Good to see you. No, that was a joke.
He's looking yoked.
He is, and
from the neck up,
and obscenely large. You can find Chris at Marion Ranch. We're excited to be with you today. We are in our religion segment, and we are continuing along. We have a list of questions that people have been asking that we wanted to take a crack at answering. So if you may or may not remember, a few weeks ago, we did a segment on why we believe evil exists. And while there are many theories and potential realities that kind of come to it, we wanted to take a crack at answering for you who are our friends, because we figured it might be helpful to know. We work in this profession and we get asked these questions on a daily, if not weekly basis. I know I've encountered a lot, and James, you probably have to some degree. And I think I'm encountering this one more and more with young people especially. I find that this is kind of the trajectory of a lot of thinking, a lot of the youngsters these days. I don't know. Do I fall in that category of said youngster? I'm on the backside of my 20s now.
Definitely tween with that youngster terminology.
Yeah, I'm 26, so...
Oh, you're old.
So I'm old, so I officially get to be part of the OGC?
You might as well be something like Indiana Jones digs up.
Okay, I mean, that's good. That means people have to listen to me, or something or other. So the question that we have for today's religious segment is one that has been debated for thousands of minutes. Do all religions lead to God? Do all roads lead to God? And that's a good question, and we'll have a pretty good topical discussion about this one today. I feel like a lot of our questions a lot of our answers to this question might overlap. Chris, can we get that question up on the screen? Is that a possible one to throw up there?
Yeah, give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
Well, let me make some statements. First of all,
I'll refute those statements.
What's the question again?
Do all roads lead to God? Do all religions lead to God?
I'm totally paying attention over here.
All right. So let me make some statements.
Get on the ball.
The statement or the belief that all religions lead to God, we call that pluralism.
Or right? Universalism?
No, it's not the same thing as universalism, in fact. Because you can be a strict Christian in terms of what you think is true.
Theology.
Right? But you can still be a universalist, at least
sure.
Theoretically. Because the difference is universalism is the belief that everybody is saved, but it could be just through the work of Christ. That's not the same thing as pluralism, where all religions play a role in leading people to God.
So religious pluralism is the topic of discussion for today.
Well, it's good to get these terms out, right?
No, I just stumbled through my word. Pluralism.
Pluralism. So if you believe that all religions or most religions lead to the same God, that is pluralism, which I would say does not fit within the gospel. And we'll get to that in a moment exactly. But to talk about this more, what is pluralism? What is this question? It comes out of a good place. The thing is I get upset when other Christians get angry about these beliefs.
Sure.
I certainly am not a pluralist, but I don't understand the immediate anger response from some Christians on these topics, because often these beliefs come out of a good place, even if it's a mistaken place.
Sure.
Right? People who want all religions to lead to the same God, they want everybody to be equally legitimate in their belief sets.
Sure, you can be sincere, but sincerely wrong.
Right. They want peace, right? It's a belief that definitely promotes peace. If you can say that all religions have sort of an equal positive power, then we don't have to fight each other anymore over religion. And the maybe naive but still hopeful belief is that if you can convince everybody of pluralism, then there's no reason to fight a lot of battles. Now, I would say that I don't think battles are really fought over religion most of the time. I think religion is just an excuse for fighting. I don't think making everybody a pluralist would actually save us any battles. But that's a different topic for another day. But I do.
Next week, in fact.
But I want to admit up front that it comes out of a good place, right?
Yeah.
That it comes out of a place of people wanting others to be saved, for other people's beliefs to be legitimate, or to be acknowledged as legitimate. But ultimately, I would say, from a Christian worldview, it doesn't make sense. I would say it doesn't make sense from an unbiased worldview, because the thing is different religions are after very different things.
Yeah.
I mean, if Buddhism and Christianity are after two very different things. Christianity at its, I would say, at its base is after, part of the narrative of Christianity is the extension of this life into another eternal one. Whereas for Buddhism, it's escaping life as we understand
The goal is literally the opposite.
Right. It's a completely different goal. So you can't even really match up these beliefs as if they're talking about the same things, because the goals of many of these religions are very different. I know people. I had a good friend from India who he wasn't Hindu, but he believed in probably a lesser popular religious faith where his belief was everybody is born 7 times, and then after the 7th time, your existence kind of gets sort of dispersed into the ether of the universe. You get 7 lives, and then you're done. That's nothing.
Like a weird variant of like Neoplatonism, or like.
These religions aren't after the same thing. They're not conceiving the same universe. They're not conceiving the same God. I would make the personal argument, I don't think Islam and Christianity conceive the same God. Not at all. And I'm not even talking about like Trinitarianism versus other isms about God. I'm just at the basic definition of God. They're very different. They're not after the same God. But let's talk about from the Christian standpoint. So the thing about the Christian gospel is this, that there is in the world and in humanity a sin problem, that we owe a deficit of sin, or a deficit of, I guess, righteousness, of virtue, and
I got plenty of sin. I don't have a deficit.
What we owe is payment for sin, and what Christ does on the cross alleviates that deficit, alleviates that debt owed, and brings peace between us and God. And it's Christ alone who does it. And the way we enter into that salvation is through entering into Christ's death, burial, and resurrection. I would say through baptism, right? And that's the Christian gospel. It is one door, and that door is through Christ. Now, like I said, there are now when we speak in terms of Christian faith, you get a few different positions. You get exclusivists who would say, you got to do it exactly the way the plan says, or you're in or you're out. There are those who are more inclusivist who say, well, there's a game plan and you should do the game plan, but God is more merciful than that. Maybe those who don't hear the gospel in other countries or something, in other times, they get in as well, kind of based on mercy. And that's another topic for another day, but these are people's Christian perspectives on this question. And then there's universalists who say, yes, it's Christ's work that saves humanity, but Christ's work saves everybody, period. Which is different than pluralism, which would say that Christ does his work, but then there's these other religions that have their own different routes into salvation. But again, not every religion's interested in salvation.
Yeah, and so I think that's the thing that we get confused a lot, typically from like a Western perspective, is confusing our definitions, right? And trying to understand, like, your understanding of salvation as a Christian, it may and most likely is inherently different from somebody else's perspective of what that would look like, right? If the goal of nirvana is to extinguish oneself and get out of here, that's far different from what I expect. That actually sounds more like hell to me than it does heaven. So, okay, so then what do we say in terms of some highlights that come out of the pluralist argument that we should consider and maybe potentially help inform our belief or our understanding? What are the goods
that
potentially come out of pluralism?
I've always noticed that there seems to be two kinds of pluralists out there. There's pluralists who are pluralist from a religious standpoint. They have this religious belief that all religions or most religions are the same. that they lead to the same God. Then there are pluralists that I have noticed that their pluralism is pragmatic. They want the positive results of pluralism. They want there to be less war. They want there to be less conflict between peoples. That they're not actually religiously invested in pluralism so much as pragmatically invested.
Sure.
They want the positive results, and I can understand that. For the religious pluralist, I think the main argument they would make is it's the elephant argument, right? That they think, imagine each faith as a person who's blind, and there's an elephant in front of all of these people, these blind people, and they're all feeling the elephant from different standpoints. So somebody's feeling like the kneecap and says, it's a column, right? This big, tall column. Somebody's feeling the tail. No, it's more like some kind of hose. Or somebody's feeling a tusk, and it's more like a sword or whatever. And they're all, what the pluralist would say is they're all describing the one elephant, but they're only perceiving what they are able to touch.
Right.
Personally.
So it's a microcosm of the meta-narrative, essentially.
Now, sort of the unintended consequence of that statement, though, is that all religions are not knowledgeable. All religions are ignorant. That's what that really says.
And the interesting thing is understanding of how the pluralist is the one who's able to view the elephant in its totality.
Right.
So that's the common retort against a pluralist argument or pluralist rhetoric is, who are you to say, or how do you know? If you're claiming all religions have some type of ignorance, so yeah, you're still like some subsect of Christianity. How does the pluralist know and understand that the elephant is an elephant?
And the problem is when you get into a real serious discussion with a pluralist, what I generally find is the pluralist still wants to, they still have to make cuts.
Yeah.
Because how can you say one of the Papua New Guinea cannibalist faiths is equal to a peace-loving religion?
Mm-hmm.
And they'd be like, well, maybe not, right? And like you end up, the argument starts fraying at the end.
You're kind of lopping some stuff off there, guys.
Right.
Yeah.
So pluralists, when you start getting into the nitty-gritty of each religion, then they start picking and choosing. What they really want is the three Abrahamic faiths and Buddhism and Hinduism and a few other
little Shinto,
acceptable,
little Tao.
Sure. Acceptable peace religions is what they really want. Yeah, that's what they really want to include in this pluralism, not actually every faith. But then, now the pluralist has become an exclusivist, right? Now there is a line. What's the line? It's got to lead to a peaceful God, maybe, right?
Peaceful God. Have you ever read the Bible?
Right. So it's tricky, right?
Yeah. So what are some, last question in this discussion in regards to a scriptural understanding, right? Like a scriptural basis maybe for finding some of these arguments. Where would someone point to find some arguments that might, not for the sake of shutting down discussion in Christianity, but to support and kind of bolster your view of this? Because I don't know, we're not... Yeah, where would
well,
you,
it depends on what you're asking. I mean, what I wouldn't suggest, and I know you would agree with this, I'm not criticizing you, I wouldn't suggest Christians going out to non-Christian pluralists and beating them with the Bible.
No, of course not.
Because that's fallacious, right? It's not going to work out because they're not going to accept the Bible as the same authority as a Christian. But for Christians talking to Christians about this issue, I mean, first of all, Romans, right? Romans, you might say 4 and 5, you might open it up to 1 through 8, gets at the heart of what is the exclusive, and I don't mean as an exclusivism, but the exclusive power of Christ in salvation. That it's Christ alone who brings about salvation for humanity, and it's our entrance into his death, burial, and resurrection, which includes us into Christ's salvation. And that would be, so for Christians talking to Christians who want to know more about what does the Bible say, well, Romans 4 and 5 and 6, or you might say 1 through 8 more generally. Yeah. Though that's probably the meatiest, most straightforward conversation on the importance of Christ in the New Testament. Also, all the places in the Gospels, particularly Matthew, Mark, and Luke, just before the crucifixion. So this would be like Mark 14, this would be Matthew 26, and I believe Luke 20, although I might be a little fuzzy on that chapter with Luke, where Christ discussed the nature of what he's about to do the night before, and he talks about how this is the shedding of his blood is for the forgiveness of sins. So that would be another place where you could kind of look at it in narrative form. Also, remind me, the 1 Corinthians, is it 11 passage where Paul recites the communion story?
1 Corinthians 15, I think.
It's not 15, but I think it's 11, actually. But that doesn't matter.
Sure.
Anyway, so that would be some places in the Bible to look from a Christian perspective. What is Christ's exclusive claim to salvation, and how we need to be part of Christ to gain access to that salvation?
Yeah, I think another argument that's valuable in terms of considering this is the impact of the importance of what Christ has done through the idea of a crucifixion, a burial, and a resurrection lends itself to the understanding of the centrality that Christ plays in humanity's redemption there. So if you're a believer, again, this is not from an outside the canon or outside the Christian faith perspective, but if you're within that and you claim that as truth in your own life, an important realization is there seems to be some type of, as far as the Gospels themselves are concerned, a very inherent centrality of Christ and Christ's role there. And to open that up beyond and to say it's one role of many, right, or it's one way of many just as valuable or just as valid roles, one can do that. I mean, certainly people do that. Pluralism exists. People withhold that position. But I think we would say, at least in our perspective, that's moving beyond the scope of what the Gospels themselves would probably be trying to establish there. Who Jesus saves, how Jesus saves is clear. The who Jesus saves, we don't really know. Obviously, again, that's not for us to decide, but moving beyond that, right?
And from a biblical standpoint or a New Testament standpoint, Christ's ability to save is intimately tied to the fact that he is God's son.
Yeah.
It's not something that a bunch of different messianic figures could do. Like the New Testament isn't saying that, Christ is a Messiah and there's many other Messiahs, wink, wink. The New Testament is claiming Christ as God's son was able to achieve this, and there's only one son.
Right.
It's an exclusive divinity.
Yeah.
There. By the way, I wanted to just mention it is 1 Corinthians 11:23 in the following verses. Just wanted to clear that up.
So there are some thoughts to consider with that discussion. As we move forward, we would love to kind of engage with you on a dialogue level. If you have any kind of feedback or different ideas that you might want to throw into this discussion, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. We would love to kind of open that up for our friends of the podcast, and be sure to check us out and check out some of our other videos. Please like this video and subscribe. We are getting up there in our numbers. I think we're seeing a little bit of a surge, so that's been fun. And be sure to check out and follow us throughout the week for new content there as we drop a couple videos a week. We are also super active over on our Facebook page at facebook.com/faithandwhatever. You can find me on Twitter at Josh_Carmen. Garrett is at TStudentLife. James is at JamesYUILE. Chris is at Marion Ranch, and then our Faith and Whatever Twitter account is Faith, the letter N, and whatever. So thank you so much, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.